Welcome into the NL Central State of the Division, a Just Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Clay Snowden. No Ethan today. Ethan is out. Pinch hitting for Ethan, we have Sam Luckini. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm incredible. I am very happy that I am pinch hitting for Mr. Ethan Badowski because that's my guy. I'm not as handsome as he is, but you guys get to see my face today, which is cool.
So each week, Ethan and I have a different NL Central team that we wear hats or shirts of. Being a Reds fan, it feels disgusting, but I'm wearing the Cubs hat today. Do you have a team hat on? He for those of you on Spotify, he's wearing it backwards, so I can't see. Is it
I got a Just Baseball hat on? I have it on backwards. It's a Just Baseball hat. So I don't have okay. The only thing that I have that's NL Central. I think I have a Cardinals jersey, so that's it. But I don't really feel like putting that on. So
yeah, I'm sure it's a Tommy Edman jersey, right?
No, it's Arenado. Arenado.
I don't know if there's too many Tommy Edman jerseys. There should be more, but
so.
This is going to be a different type of episode today. I'm going to run through the standings as usual, and then we're going to get into trade deadline discussion. We're going to run through each team, buyer, seller, who they have to trade, who they could be targeting. It's going to be a fun episode. There's only a few weeks, about 3 weeks left until the trade deadline, so things should start picking up. So let's just go ahead and get into it. The standings are pretty similar to what they've been all year. Sam, the first month and a half to 2 months, the standings did not change one time. Briefly, the Cardinals took first place for a brief amount of time. It looks like the Cubs are in third now instead of the Pirates. So first place Brewers, 47-37. Second place Cardinals, 44-40. Third place, your Chicago Cubs, 34-48. That's such a big drop off from second to third. Pirates, fourth place at 33-48. And the Caboose, last place Reds, 28-53. So as we start off, I don't like talking about the same order of the standings each time because I'm tired of talking about the Brewers first every time. So we're going to start with the Reds, my team. The Reds, buyers or sellers? They're going to be sellers at the deadline. And they actually have some good pieces to trade off. We'll start first with Tyler Malley, who I have to mention was just put on the IL. 3-7 this year, 4.48 ERA, 1.3 WHIP, 92.1 innings, 102 strikeouts. Sam, what do you think of Tyler Malley? And I'm really interested to hear what you think about him as an outsider. Sam's a Yankees, or as he calls them, the Jankies fan. So as an outsider, what do you think of Tyler Malley?
I think that the Cincinnati Reds 110% have to get this man out of Great American Ballpark. I think that his stuff is great. And I just think that it's a detriment that with the ballpark that he's playing and it's really playing against him. I mean, there's other pitchers in this rotation that have had success in Great American Ballpark, but I feel like he's the biggest, he feels the biggest downfall of this effect. And I think that any team that gets him, say you trade him to a Seattle, which has the lowest park factor in baseball, I think he would be a pretty decent pitcher out there. That's just one location that I'm pulling up out of my head. But I think if they get him out of Great American Ballpark, I think he could be a solid, maybe 3-4 guy in a rotation and probably would be great for a playoff team.
Yeah. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know his home career ERA is over 5. Road is around 3.2, somewhere like that. So you're absolutely right. Perhaps the biggest trade chip in terms of starting pitchers on the entire market is Luis Castillo. 3-4 on the year. He started off the year injured, so these stats are a little bit less. 3.09 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, 64 innings, 66 Ks. This guy's getting traded, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we saw his name being floated in rumors a ton this past offseason. My Yankees were dipping their hand in talking about him. And then most recently, I guess Brian Cashman called up Reds general manager trying to, put a deal in place for that guy. But yeah, I mean, he's got to be the biggest piece on the market as far as starting pitchers goes, along with him and Oakland's Frankie Montas. But he's an elite ground ball pitcher, led the league in ground ball percentage last season. So I feel like he's going to bring the Reds back a huge haul. And I think without a doubt, he's going to get traded at this deadline.
Yeah. And just quickly, I'm very anti, especially where the Reds are in terms of team construction, roster building, competitive window. I'm anti signing up long-term deals to starting pitchers who are over 30 years old. It just doesn't make sense to me. He'll be right at that 30-year of age once we reach the offseason. It's not a long-term deal for him. He still has 1 year of team control left, I believe, which is just going to up his price Reds have a strong farm system right now, probably around top 5, definitely top 10, depending on which list you look at. Adding to that, it's only going to help. You can never have too many good young assets. Okay, so as a Yankees fan, it's interesting here. Luis Castillo, would you be willing to give up whatever it would take? I know, what's the young Anthony
Volpe.
Yeah, Volpe. I know he's off the table. Jason Dominguez probably off the table. We could discuss him all day, but anyone outside of that, or are you willing to give up a pitcher and maybe a couple position players in the farm?
I don't know, because you're paying this guy in 2 years, right? He's got another year of team control. So I don't, and where the Yankees rotation is at this point, they've seen a little bit of a dip off. Jameson Taillon's kind of starting to fall off a cliff a little bit, but I think that they still have 4 solid starters. And I don't know, if you really should dip into this prospect haul as compared to going out and getting a guy like Brian Reynolds from Pittsburgh, right? Which I think is never going to happen because they want everything in the world for that guy. But I really don't think that we're going to dip that deep into our prospect haul just to trade for Luis Castillo, he has the 1 year of control left, which is great. But I don't think they want to pay him, especially with, the salaries that they already have to take care of. We're talking about Aaron Judge and stuff like that. I don't think the Yankees trade for Luis Castillo at the end of the day. I think he goes to like a Boston or, there's a ton of different teams
Toronto's
like LA, the Dodgers, like everybody needs starters right now. So I don't think he's going to go to the Yankees, but I think, either an LA or a Boston or a Toronto, like you said, could be a great landing spot for him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the last one for the Reds is Brandon Drury. This was a guy who was an invite to spring training, kind of a cast off. Once a Diamondback prospect who flashed his rookie year, 30 years old, and he's batting 270, 331, 524, 17 home runs, good for a 131 WRC plus. What the hell do we make of Brandon Drury? Is this just a hot season for him and you just have to trade him at his peak? Or do you say, okay, maybe a couple year extension for Brandon Drury?
No, sell. You have to sell.
I agree.
Yankee legend Brandon Drury, mind you.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
He was awful. He was god-awful with the Yankees. But yeah, you have to sell it. I don't know what you're going to get in a Brandon Drury deal. I don't think he's going to be worth that much in the open market. And then, like you said, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. So yeah. I don't think this is a 30-year-old thing where he's going to go ballistic and become Juan Soto or something, Yeah. But I think that they should deal him off at the deadline. I think that there will be plenty of teams that'll be out here looking for a bat like that. He's been consistently well this year, which is crazy to think about. He's going to be the Reds all-star, which is crazy just because, the Reds have been so bad, unfortunately, but he's going to be an all-star this year, which is nuts. But yeah, I think he could be a decent bat for a team, for a playoff team, for sure. I think, maybe a bench option if somebody needs him in the field as well. So I think Drury could be solid. I don't think they're going to get a lot back for him, but it would be a nice piece of the deadline for somebody.
No, I totally agree. Rebuilding teams always sell high on 30-plus-year-olds or 30-year-olds in this case. Moving on to the St. Louis Cardinals. I picture you as a Cardinals fan. Like, I am born and bred to hate the Cardinals, right? But I respect the hell out of them. They just always seem to have solid baseball players. Everyone talks about the Rays way. Oh, let's do stuff like the Rays. Screw that. Do stuff like the Cardinals. They have a championship. The Rays don't. The Cardinals are a similar type of organization where they just develop great talent. However, they are going to be buyers this year. They have a few holes in the roster. They need starting pitching. They need a catcher. Yadier Molina has been injured in kind of dude, last I heard, which was like 2 weeks ago when I wrote an article about him, he wasn't even with the team. He was like back home. And I don't know if he's coming back. I don't know when he's coming back. Regardless, his WRC plus is 46. Like, sure, he's a good defensive catcher. Leadership matters. They need a middle infielder, maybe. Tommy Edmonds been solid, coming down a little bit. Probably a better second baseman. This is how his bat profile is than shortstop, but he's been picking it at short. Nolan Gorman, Brennan Donovan's been getting some play in the middle infield. I think they could still use an upgrade there. What type of targets are you looking at? You mentioned one out in Oakland that I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think Montas is perfect for this Cardinals team. I mean, we've been talking about the Cardinals needing starting pitching for forever. We just saw Jack Flaherty go down with another injury. So I think they definitely need somebody to fill in. If they want to compete with Milwaukee, which we're going to talk about later, they need to get more starting pitching. This lineup is incredible. I think they have one of the best lineups in baseball. They're kind of on a bit of a skid. They just got swept by the Braves last week. So I think they need another starter. I think Montas would be perfect. If they need to like pick into that top 3 of their prospects to go out and get a Frankie Montas, and they don't want to do it whatsoever. And I think they finally need to just dip in and finally take one of those guys out, get Montas in. I don't with the catcher thing. I just think they're just going to hang on Yachty. I think they're going to figure it out, and it's like a loyalty thing, right? Like we can sit here and say that they need a catcher, but everybody in the Cardinals organization is going to say, yeah, no, it's going to be Yachty, right? But we're not smarter, but come on now. Like it's 46 WRC plus guy. And with the middle infielder, I think Eben's been great. Coming down a little bit, like you said, with Gorman, he started hot, also has come down, like you said. So I think that first on their list has to be a starting pitcher without a doubt, probably a middle infielder. And then I don't think they trade for a catcher.
Yeah, and this won't happen, but it's such a fun idea. Sean Murphy and Frankie Montas. Ooh. Sean Murphy could be signed long-term. There's your plus catcher, Frankie Montas. I mean, that is we're winning the division and have eyes on the World Series type of move. That would just take so much that they're not willing to do. But if I'm playing MLB The Show, I'm pulling that trigger.
That's what I was going to say. That's like an MLB The Show trade right there.
Now, last year they went out and got some like John Lester types, right? And J.A. Happs.
That was weird.
If they go that route again, I wouldn't want to, but some lesser options that they could target we have down here. Martin Perez, who's been great in Texas. One of those guys who's like not a good pitcher and just this year has figured it out somehow. Still waiting for that decline to hit. I can't make myself believe Martin Perez after like 6 mediocre years. Eric Fetty from the Nationals, another just back end guy, sure can eat some innings fine, around a 4.5 ERA. And Brad Keller from the Kansas City Royals. We're not even going to get into them because who gives a shit about them?
Yeah.
The Chicago Cubs, sellers, weird offseason, added a bunch of vets. Jonathan VR out already. Andrelton Simmons, washed. Seiya Suzuki, injured. Finally back. Good player. I like him. Now, they have probably one of the top trade targets on the market in Wilson Contreras, a catcher, but he's a 150 WRC plus catcher. I know league average is 100. Remember, catchers typically, a good hitting catcher is in 90 or so. So below league average, good for a catcher. This guy could be a DH somewhere. He could fit in the Mets. You know, they don't really have a good catcher. He could fit on a lot of teams. He's slashing 274, 392, 498. I don't even think we need to talk about him much, do we? I think we all know what he is.
I mean, he's been the best catcher in the National League. He trumped the Just Baseball Golden Boy, Will Smith, for that title and has been this season because we all love Will Smith, but Will Smith just hasn't stacked up to Wilson Contreras this year. But yeah, I just think that Wilson Contreras to the Mets makes too much sense. And if anything, the Mets should have pulled off this deal last year instead of the Javier Baez thing. So, and it's like the weirdest thing to think about. And I don't know why, but I hate this team because I hated their offseason. I think the Marcus Stroman deal is one of the most disgusting deals in the game. He's, giving up 5 earned runs and a AAA start. So I just think this team is so weird and they need to sell. Wilson Contreras is going to be one of the most valuable pieces on the market. And I think just get this guy in New York already. I think it's a perfect spot.
Their farm is starting to blossom some. From maybe outlook from before this season, Pete Crow Armstrong's looked really good. Christian Hernandez has a bright future. Christopher Morales up in the big league club and looking like he can hold his own. Little slumps here and there, but I don't think the future is out. I don't think this is oh my God, dude, they're screwed. They're going to get off some money in the next year and 2 years. Jason Hayward, Kyle Hendrick. I mean, there's some big contracts they're going to get off. A lot of questions still to be answered. One thing that could restart the rebuild, and I wrote an article about this at justbaseball.com. Should the Cubs trade Ian Happ? Ian Happ is so underrated. He I mean, he really is. He's slashing 279, 377, 454, 8 home runs, 131 WRC plus, switch hitter, can play left, in a pinch can play center, has played second. I don't like him there. DH type. He could fit on any team just about, right?
Yeah, and I desperately want them to trade Ian Happ because I want Ian Happ at pinstripes, and that would be the coolest thing ever. But
so
yeah,
I thought about that fit right before
yeah,
he came on. I'd not thought about that because I'm thinking Toronto, maybe Boston, and because I guess with my mind, it's like the Yankees are the best team in baseball. Like they can add, but do they need to? Maybe. But Ian Happ and pinstripes, man, I kind of like it. But would you be willing to let Aaron Hicks off the roster, man?
Oh, come on, man. That's one of the best players on the team. What are we even talking about right here?
Oh,
God,
man.
dude. I mean, hey, listen, Aaron Hicks has been decent lately.
Yeah.
Okay. Past like 4 games has been awful. He had a grand slam last night, which was fun. So, but Ian Happ, man, I think would fit, like you said, he would fit on any like you said, one of the most underrated guys in baseball. He's been one of the best left fielders in baseball. It's like him and Austin Hayes, 2 of the most underrated guys, both left fielders, both been crazy this year, both could get dealt this year, which is nuts. So I just think for him, he's not a great defender, right? Switch hitting guy, like you said, DH type, could really fit on any team. And really, when we talk about him to the Yankees, you can put him on any team. You can put this guy on any team. It doesn't matter. It's whoever's going to be willing to give up the biggest haul.
Seattle, man.
Yeah, I think Seattle, if they want to make a push, but like then again, I don't think they're that great. But like Ian Happ, I just think could fit anywhere. And he will bring in, I mean, at least I think he should bring in a decent haul at the deadline.
I would love to see him in Minnesota, and I don't know why. Him in the baby blue Twins jerseys. Listen, I don't know, man.
Those Twins, man. Those Twins. I like hated them at the beginning of the year. Now they're crazy good.
Them. I love that.
They're
team.
so fun. They're so fun. Buxton's healthy. It's so fun.
It's a mixture of your Buxton and Correa, like top level baseball players, and your mixture of like solid dudes, and then young talent, Jose Miranda and Luis Ariz is so incredibly fun to watch, kind of a throwback type with the contact. But this isn't a Twins podcast. The 2 other guys I want to mention for the Cubs are Rafael Ortega, and that's not going to excite many teams. Rafael Ortega is a sneaky good player. He's 30 years old last year when he kind of got his chance and played well down the stretch. 115 WRC plus this year. If you add Rafael Ortega as your 4th outfielder, those are types of moves that are not going to win you the World Series, but they're going to solidify your roster. They're going to add some depth and add some insurance, which is so important. How many times do you see a championship team with no bench? You know what I mean? So that's a guy who could get moved. And the last one is David Robertson. I don't want to talk about him too much. Former Yankee, closer, 1.89 ERA, 12 saves, 0.96 whip. He's going to get moved. I don't think he'll be a closer for a contender, but put him in your setup role. We're going to move on to the Brewers. You know what? No, we're not. I want to save the Brewers for last because I know we've got some discussion there. Let's move on to the Pirates. This should be quick. Pirates, sellers, Jose Quintana, vet lefty starter, probably a 4-5 guy, 3.33 ERA, 1.28 whip, 81 innings and 74 Ks. Everyone knows what Jose Quintana is. He's having a good year this year. I could see him going to a competitive team and filling out some innings late in the season and possibly being moved to the bullpen in a playoff. Add some depth, add some insurance. I know I say that a lot, but like I just find that to be so important. What do you think of Jose Quintana?
Yeah, I mean, he shoved against the Yankees the other night, which was crazy. So that's what I think of Jose Quintana. Nah, seriously, he would be a great innings eater for a contender for sure. I just think that's pretty much it. I just think he would be a great innings eater for a contender. Gives you a 6th guy. You can rest your 5 guys in the other days. So, he's an innings eater. That's pretty much it.
And he's cheap. He will not cost a lot to acquire. Daniel Vogelbach, a very interesting body type. A fun player to watch. Fans love him. 232 average, 331 on base with a 440 slugging, 11 home runs. Another player. We just know what he is. He'll get on base some. He's not going to hit for a high average, and he'll hit some bombs. Teams can acquire talent like that. The Brewers got him last year. Former Mariner, former All-Star. People forget. former All-Star, which doesn't really mean much with that team he was on in Seattle. Plenty of fits there. A lefty bat, even if he's off the bench or DH, that's fine. The guy I want to talk about is David Bednar, and you wrote a article on David Bednar on justbaseball.com. The closer for the Pirates, 2.37 ERA, 38 innings, 51 Ks. Here's what we've talked about every week, Ethan and I. Why the hell are the Pirates pitching this guy more than one inning at a time? Had a bit of an injury, I think last week, maybe the week before. This is a guy who, like, typically relievers don't bring a huge haul. This is the type that can bring a huge haul with team control.
Yeah, so he hasn't been great ever since I wrote that article. He hasn't been great. And like you said, with the extended innings thing, it is a bit odd, but it also can put him in a different type of role. If you need a guy that can go, 6 outs for your team, I think he would be a perfect setup guy for a bunch of these playoff contenders. And what I wrote about essentially is that they have to trade this guy. Any contender could use this guy. I think he'd be a perfect setup guy for pretty much any team. And then there are teams that already have established closers. But as you get towards that playoff run, once you're in that trade deadline mindset, your good teams, your Yankees, your Red Sox, your Dodgers, those kind of teams, they want to buff up their bullpen as much as they can, right? They already have a solidified closer, but buffing up that bullpen is so key. And I think that Bednar would be a great fit. I think that Bednar could walk into Philadelphia right now and be the best pitcher in that pen by a mile. And I think
the best
that would be
pitcher in years
for them. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think I put him in Philly. That was my choice right there. I put Bednar in Philly. If they're going to make a playoff chase, I think that he would be the perfect guy to be at the back half of that pen. And they should get a decent haul for him because he's been incredible this season.
Yeah, that team control is huge. Rebuilding teams. We said it already. Trade 30-year-olds, right? The other rule I have is trade relievers. How often do you look at a team that's like, holy crap, this reliever just came out of nowhere and he's good? Like, that's just what happens. Even if you look at competitive teams, look at the Dodgers. They have like Evan Phillips, right? I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. But these guys are so up and down. If you're a rebuilding team, trade relievers. Lastly, the Brewers. Buyers. A little bit about the Brewers before we dive in. They need offense. We know about the pitching that they have. Elite bullpen, top-notch starting pitching when healthy. I think they need, center field, Jonathan Davis is playing center field right now. Tyrone Taylor's going to come back from injury. So will Hunter Renfroe, which will help. But at the end of the day, Andrew McCutchen, Christian Yelich is a shell of what he used to be. I just don't love that outfield. I could see a center fielder there. I put first base / DH. And the reason why I put that is if you want to go out and get a big time first baseman, you can move Tellez to DH or make that first baseman the DH. Their DH right now is like Andrew McCutchen against lefties and a mixture of others against righties. I think third base is an option as well. Luis Urias is a good player. I think he's a better like super utility guy and bench bat. Maybe a guy who can play second some, short, but back up at short. Colton Wong is nothing special at second if they want to platoon him. Let's just talk targets. If you have any on the top of your mind, or if you want to just rant a little bit about the Brewers, I know that you recently wrote an article about them, right?
Yeah, I did write about them, and it was when they were on their 9-game skid, but then they turn around and now they're 47 wins.
That's how it always works,
which
man.
is fun. Yeah, it always happens to me. I'll write about something, and then after that, the team becomes incredible. So, but yeah, the Brewers, man, they need bats desperately. I just think that this offense is so dead. They're so dry to watch. Obviously, the starting pitching is such a joy with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff and all those guys that they have, but they need bats, and we saw it last year. And what I brought back in that article that I wrote just a couple weeks ago was that the Brewers last year in the playoffs in their division round series against the Braves put up a total of 5 runs, right? And you can't do that in a 4-game set. You just cannot do that in a 4-game set and expect to win baseball games, right? And it's not that the pitching didn't come through. Their starters all threw well in every single one of those games, but they just could not provide an ounce of offense. So I think without a doubt, like you said with the Andrew McCutchen thing, Andrew McCutchen being your DH, I like Kutch. He was a Yankee. I really enjoyed him when he was there. but he cannot be your DH at what is he, 38 years old? He just cannot be your everyday DH. And I love him, but that cannot be the guy. But without a doubt, they need a bat. I like what you said about the first base DH thing, because if they want to move Rowdy, who's actually been one of their better hitters this year, I think you go out and get one of these premier first basemen, like I'm going to assume that you're going to allude to here, because I do see a key name in your notes that is really interesting and that I want to talk about.
So I'm just going to read some names off that I have here. Josh Bell, probably the top first baseman that's kind of obviously on the trade market. Switch hitter from the Nationals. He's going to fit on any team just about. Love that bat. Christian Walker, power hitter. You're going to bring some power, and that's about it. And some walks, but low average. And actually an upgrade at first base defensively than Tellez. Nelson Cruz, 94 WRC plus. You know, I wrote about the Nationals, and this is Nelson Cruz's first season under 105 WRC plus. Now he still has time to get that up since 2007. 2007. This dude's old as hell.
Yeah.
Nelson Cruz, I mean, he only has 8 home runs this year, but I know a team's going to get him thinking, oh yeah, he's going to hit some bombs, kind of like the Rays did last year. Trey Mancini. Now, I'm going to come up with a few interesting names here. Trey Mancini, not a bad first base option. I think the Orioles, and there's 2 Orioles on this list, are going to be buying and selling. I think they have a bright future. They have the best farm system. I could see them selling, but also buying assets that are maybe a couple of years of control. They need some pitching. Mancini's one. Anthony Santander is another one. Switch hitting outfielder, can play the corners for you, can DH for you. I think Baltimore is going to move him. I think they're going to want to keep Hayes. They have enough outfield prospects. Colton Cowser is one of the top prospects. He's more of a center fielder. And I just think that they will not let go of Hayes. Santander, I mean, they can move him. And the last one that I think is interesting is Jose Abreu. I mean, talk to me about Jose Abreu. We know what the White Sox are. They have the same, as of yesterday, they have the same amount of wins as the Orioles.
And it hurts me to talk about this, because I actually really do like the White Sox. I really like the White Sox this year. I put them in the World Series last year. That's how much I liked them last year.
Oh, they were dude, I was so high. They were so fun. That roster was
so fun. So fun. But now they've fallen off a cliff. And Jose Abreu, man, I actually tweeted it out the other day. Statistically, Jose Abreu has been better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this season. I went through everything. I think the only thing that Guerrero Jr. clips him in is slugging percentage and RBIs and home runs. I think everything else, Abreu tops it out. He's a better defender than Guerrero Jr. is. So, but with the White Sox, if they're still in this position where they're in third place and they're really struggling, right? And the Guardians and the Twins look good right now. And Minnesota, we talked about them a little bit earlier. They've been great this year. If they finally decide that they're going to sell, I think that this would be their top piece, because Abreu's a little bit older. He's not one of these younger guys that you're going to want to hold on to. So I think if you put Abreu in Milwaukee, I think that's a golden fit. And that's a really interesting name. And another name that I do want to throw out there to you is Cedric Mullins. You were talking about the Orioles a little bit. That's another outfielder that they could possibly deal for. And I think that they will probably deal at the deadline, because they're really forcing this youth movement. I think they're going to end up playing Austin Hayes in center field, even though he's not a great defender. But I think they want to get this value out of Mullins right now. And I think he would be a good fit for this Brewers team as well.
Yeah, Cedric Mullins. I mean, dude, are we just tearing apart Baltimore?
Oh, we're tearing apart the Orioles. But the thing is, man, is I'm a local guy. All my friends are Orioles fans, and I love how great they are right now.
Yeah.
But I just know that it's coming. It's going to be a bad deadline.
The only reason I don't think they would trade Cedric Mullins is because his highest value was the off season, and they did not do it then. I mean, he still has incredible value. I like Baltimore. I love watching that team. I love youth movement teams. So I don't want to see him go. Going back to the White Sox, I talked to Tyson, who's just baseball's kind of resident White Sox fan. And we were talking man, this farm's not deep enough to acquire talent. You can't, they have 3 guys in their farm worth a damn. You can't trade all of those guys. This team is not aging, I wouldn't say. With the amount of injuries, I just add 3 years of age to each player, because they're all always injured. And but he was, we were talking like they may have to retool, which I don't really think works in baseball. It works in basketball, and that's really about it. I think they might have to retool. And if you have Andrew Vaughn at first base and Gavin Sheets as an option, you can move 35-year-old Jose Abreu on an expiring deal. Or I don't know if he's up this year or next year. I'd have to check.
Next year.
Next year. Okay. Move him, put the youngsters in there, get back some return. I know it would hurt the fans in Chicago, but I don't know, man. I think Jose Abreu is one of those like sneaky names to keep an eye on at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, he's an MVP. Like everybody forgets that he's an MVP, and granted, it was in 2020. But like, if they decide to sell, I think he might be the biggest name that goes. Because realistically, I don't think there are a ton of like huge names like we talked about Luis Castillo earlier or Montas, but I think Abreu he's still hits. Like he's still really good and still pretty decent defensively. So I think that for this Brewers team, I think he would be huge. And I think that without a doubt, if they acquired Abreu, I would be like, yeah, that's their division. That's their division. Unless St. Louis goes out and goes crazy with these starting pitchers, right?
That is exactly what I was about to say. This is what Ethan and I have talked about. This division is won and lost by August 1st. Whoever makes the aggressive move between the Cubs and the Brewers is going to win this division.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because they're both uber talented, good organizations. The only thing holding me back and making me side with the Cardinals, the Brewers payroll is like not high. And if you look at their past payrolls for the past 10 years, it's never high. Like how much are they willing to add in terms of money, or how much are they willing to give up to add a cheaper player that's really talented? Either way, great discussion today. Check out Sam Luckini. Sam, tell us your Twitter handle. And those who do not know, Sam is an MLB TikToker, and I'm not saying that in a joking way. This guy's like a legit TikToker here, so pump out your ads and your content here.
Yeah, I do skits and other things on TikTok, which is a good time, of course. Everything, all my socials are just at Sam Luckini, Twitter, everything. My Instagram is just at Sam Sports Talk, just because I'll post like meme stuff on there and Yankee stuff. But yeah, and then you can check out my writings, justbaseball.com. So I'm writing like 2-3 times a week over there. So Clay, thanks for having me today, man. I had a great time. This is awesome.
Yeah, dude. I had a blast. So thanks for joining us. Keep an eye out. Reds fans out there, I wrote a piece today about Nick Senzel, and if he's starting to turn a corner for the Reds, check that out. Some great video in there that we add in some graphs and fun visuals in that one. So that's it for us. This is the state of the division of the NL Central, and we are out.